Hi team, welcome back to our channel, and today we'll be going over our team's performance at the IPF World Champs this past June. So performances we'll be going over today will be from Kavishi Kariyawasam under 57 kg open in the B group. We also going over four-time two-division world champion Nnamani from Great Britain, and another former world champion in her own right, Karlina Tongotea from New Zealand, and also last year's podium finisher from the super heavyweight class, Tasi. Okay. But before we go through any of that, firstly, I want to apologize for having been away for so long from social media and also from YouTube. Basically, been doing a ton of coaching, my actual job instead of creating content. So always coach first. But now we're back. Also, what I've been up to is I've been doing a ton of work uploading and updating our training app. So been uploading a ton of new programs in our training app. We are now up to over 115 different training blocks in our app with over 2,000 unique workouts. That's our more convenient and more affordable solution for those of you who are looking to add a bit of structure to your strength training. So head over, I'll put the link in the description below. Head over to that, check out and browse our programs that are available for you. Like I said, more convenient and more affordable. So our price also we slashed from a little bit higher, but we slashed it all the way down to 7 to 10 New Zealand dollars a week, depending on your pricing plan. So if you're from the US or from Europe, that's roughly half your currency, unfortunately. So, well, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for you. So head over, check that out. Check out our training app if you're looking for a little bit of structure to your strength training, but a little bit more convenient, a little bit more affordable as opposed to your standard online coaching. The other thing that I've been working on quite a lot on is our new website. So if you're watching this and it's already launched, you can just I'll be putting the link in the description below when it launches. So check that out too. Check out our coaching services, online and on-site coaching and other coaching structures that may be more suitable for you. But without further ado, we'll be going over the performances from this year's Worlds. So first up here we have so Kavishi Kariyawasam. She is in the 57 kg B group. So first thing we want to always try to do when we're heading into a competition is define what success looks like for her. So at the end of 2022, we had Commonwealths, and she competed as a 52 kilo lifter there. And after that, we decided to go up a weight class to the 57 kilo weight class and spend the year kind of slowly building up her body weight. Not necessarily filling out the 57 class, but slowly building up to it. Mainly because the 52 kilo class is pretty much full in New Zealand, and to get a bid for the World Championships, she had to go up a weight class and pretty much change positions, if you want to put it that way. So we're heading up a weight class. By the end of 2023, we were pretty confident that she would have enough to make the A group, but our final chance to put up a good nominated total to make the A group at Worlds was at April Auckland Champs, which is a local meet for us. Unfortunately, by the end of March, she headed over to Sri Lanka for a dental appointment, and she had a pretty severe reaction to some antibiotics that she was prescribed. By severe, I mean she was bedridden for almost a week at the hospital, which is pretty stink. Like, I mean, it's great that she didn't die. Could have been way worse. But yeah, it was a pretty rough reaction to some antibiotics. You can only imagine what that would have looked like. But that also meant that it took us out of Auckland Champs, so A group was pretty much out of reach for us. Not only that, that's kind of like the least of our problems. Not only that, but she was also prescribed some medication to get over, the allergic reaction and some of the effects that she's had from there. Um, and that medication has a really really nasty side effect of muscle aches and muscle soreness. So from a training standpoint, it was pretty rough for us, more specifically on the squats. Bench fortunately didn't suffer as much, and neither did deadlift as much, but squats definitely took a hit. We were pretty much limited to 15 to 18 total reps per workout until before the side effects of the medication kind of kicked in on her, and it's just like this really nasty muscle ache that she would get if she exerted herself too hard. Funnily enough, it's more specifically on the squat. I don't know exactly what it is. I have a feeling it's got to do with having the eccentric phase of the squat. So the time under tension is a little bit greater. Obviously, the bench has that too, but the overall load's not as much. But deadlift definitely doesn't have that eccentric phase, so didn't suffer as much in terms of training. Another thing that we had happen is just during the time that she was getting over the allergic reaction, she also lost all her body weight. So she came back to New Zealand pretty much 52 kilos. So this was like kind of start of April. She came back to NZ at 52 kilos. So, start of April, 52, and then we have until June to kind of see how much body weight we could build back up. The, the over the year that we spent trying to build that back up. So pretty much, training was not great. More specifically on the squats, we didn't. Um, we didn't uh, tell people this publicly. We didn't publish it or anything like that on posts or anything like that. We just didn't want any external or internal built-in excuses if we didn't perform well. We just wanted to make sure we put our best foot forward. That being said, okay, so trying to define our success or define what success looks like for Kavi in her first World Champs. It's not to give some excuse with regards to performances. Like I said, it's more about accepting the circumstance and trying to reorganize and reconfigure or redefine what success would look like for her in this World Champs. So squat was not going great. So remember, this is a person that at 52 kilos squatted 160.5. Squat was not going great. Around 3-4 weeks out, she was feeling like 142 on a single. So pretty rough. And bench was actually going okay. It was going okay throughout the entire year, trying to build up in this body weight. And deadlift was actually also going okay. It could have gone way better. But we will manage to build up to a top single of 200 heading before the competition for peak. So our goal for this competition, long-winded way of saying this, but basically our goal for this competition was go conservative on the squats, get a good PB on the bench, and try to put all our eggs in the deadlift medal basket. So our primary goal is a deadlift medal. Now, this is very, very, very hard, not only because deadlift medal is hard to get in the 57 kilo weight class, but also we're coming in from the B group. So if you're in the B group, if you don't know, basically you lift before the A group, and the A group has 8 lifters, and those 8 lifters get to see what you lift and just pretty much try to beat that. In the A group, you'll have some contenders for the podium, and then you also have a lot of people that will be vying for individual medals. So even if you're in the B group and you locked in an individual medal, it's not really locked in. Or if you earned an individual medal, or you think you've lifted enough to earn an individual medal, anyone from the A group can kind of bypass that or lift more than that so that they could get that medal. Which is kind of what happens. But people from the B group, if you have an exceptional individual lift, they still try their hardest. That's kind of like your job, is not just to PB. Essentially, you still try your hardest to get what you can. Like in terms of what can we potentially win here, in terms of some hardware to take back home. So that's our goal. conservative squats, good PB on the bench, and a potential deadlift medal. So we'll head into the actual lifting now. Okay, here we go. So if you are aware of Kavi and tracked her progress in the past, you can tell how conservative our attempt selection was for her squats. We've pretty much set what our success would look like for this meet, and set the parameters that we want to operate under. Basically 3 to 4 weeks out, like I said, like she was missing like 142 for like a single, but on the final week of her peak, she managed to hit 150 at Lithuania. So she flew out a week early and had to do her last heavy squat there, and right after a flight, she was able to hit 150. So at best case scenario, we were wanting to put a ceiling on her third attempt squat at 155. So like I said, this is someone that squatted 160.5 at 52 kilos. So we were hoping for more in the best case scenario, but this is pretty much, like I said, like the worst case scenario. So very conservative attempt selection here. The highest we were wanting to open was 140. So if we set a ceiling of 155 and then 140 was our, the heaviest that we wanted to open, you really just have two logical options here. You can go 140, 150, or what we did was we went 140, 147 and a half, and then 155. Sorry, you can go 140, 150, 155, or 140, 147 and a half, and then 155, which is what we did. So either a 10-5 jump or an even 7.5 kilo jump. 7.5 kilo jumps are pretty high for Kavi on the squat, but it actually worked out really well for her in this competition. Obviously, the circumstances are different. Open low, jump big, hopefully hit a good ceiling, or our best ceiling here. So 147 and 140 moved really well. Pretty much looking like we can hit our best case scenario at 155, which is why after this 147, that was the attempt that we put out. Um, Almost hope for more data to be able to go heavier on the squats, but unfortunately the data that we had, the training data they had going for us was only, like I said, like 3 to 4 weeks out, missing 142 for a single, and then the week before all of a sudden we're hitting 150, but also that didn't move great. Honestly, didn't move even as well as this 155. So um, managed to hit the ceiling that I wanted to set for this competition at 155 here. So she pretty much smokes that. Again, like we probably had significantly more. By significant, I mean 5, maybe 7.5 kilos more on the day. But like I said, we just didn't have the data previously to make that decision for this competition, and also like our goals being to pretty much be conservative for the squats and then bet on the deadlifts a little bit more here. Um, yeah, managed to catch multiple angles. Obviously, some from the stream and then some filmed um, from our camera in the crowd. Managed to actually get a decent seat on the crowd there. Okay, so 155 there moves. Best case scenario for us for the squats for this day. So again, moving on to the bench. Bench is a lift that obviously Kavi has struggled with in the past. 77 and a half was her best in competition, but over the year she managed to improve quite a bit here on the bench. Now, 77 and a half isn't a lot. So in terms of percentage of progress, she's really progressing quite well on the bench with this new weight class. The last warm up she hit was 70 kilos as well. So that's something that's new for us, like taking a last warm up a little bit further out from our opener. And then from here, basically our training data suggests that like in training, she hit like a 83 bench. So the ceiling that we wanted to set here for this competition is maybe 85, but the 83 bench was not the best pause. So 82.5 is our most likely third attempt. The 77.5 moved pretty well anyways, but our most likely third attempt is going to be 82.5. So we go 77, 0.5, 80 for the second attempt. That was okay too. But at this stage, 82.5 is probably going to be our third attempt. Now, again, like this is a PB for her. So for someone of her bench ability, 5 kilo bench PB is not insignificant. So this should be 82.5 attempt should be not look past. I can't speak. We shouldn't look past 82.5. It's still going to be a significant attempt for us. So 82.5 as a third attempt here. We have, like I said, done 83 at the gym before. So this should be well within her wheelhouse. Obviously, there's travel and all that kind of stuff that people talk about a lot. But Kavi actually has a pretty stressful job, so day-to-day training is not the most ideal. It's actually a little bit more ideal for her when she goes away for this meet and like kind of having been away from work for like 7 days or something, just focusing on herself and focusing on like a little bit of lifting, a little bit of relaxing. So it looks like, at least like traveling this far away, is something that is somewhat positive to her training. I know it's a little bit funny to say having to travel like that far, but it looks so far that it's going to be really good for her for her lifting on the day. So here we are. We finished pretty much our best subtotal, not in terms of numbers to date, but in terms of performance. 6 for 6. Then we head into the deadlift. So like I said, like the goal here is for the deadlift. We opened at 180. She hit this for a triple in the gym. But this is pretty much, it was good until it wasn't. Opens at 180. Basically, being in the B group, there was around about 4 or 5 lifters that would potentially hit a deadlift medal. And one of those lifters is actually also in the B group, and her name is, I think, it's Miriam from Netherlands. So basically, she's in this group as well. So all we had to do, well, not all we had to do, but one of the things that we had to do is we had to make sure that we deadlift more than her, or in this case, the same as her because we weigh less. And then hopefully that number is enough to medal in the deadlift even after the A group goes. Basically, we're just trying to keep pace with her. And again, we know this is the B group. Is still a likelihood that people in the A group will deadlift more than Kavi anyways. That's all a given. But you still got to play, the game as you see it. And the game right now is against Miriam on the deadlift. Miriam, or I'm not sure. It's really disrespectful for me for not remembering her name. But yeah, I just, it's been a while. Anyways, 192 for her second. Now again, Kavi deadlifted 200 in the gym, so 192 for a second should be an okay second attempt to pace for a 200 potentially deadlift. As you can see here, a little bit of misexecution. Basically gets it up and down motion there. She actually gets 1 white light. I wouldn't agree. I would have given her just 3 reds here. It is an obvious up and down. She knows. She knew. Just she messed up there in terms of execution. But one thing that I will say is in terms of the 200 that she hit in the gym, training was limited also in the sense that we couldn't train heavy deadlifts the way I might want it for her. So what that means is typically for her, what I'd like to do is put her in a little bit of a state of fatigue, do some squats or do some volume before hitting a top single deadlifts. So a little bit of insight on how I like to train these heavy deadlifts for her specifically. But because of the side effect of the medication that she was taking, like I said, we couldn't really squat and then cook her with the muscle aches and all that kind of stuff, and then be able to deadlift after. So we had to deadlift as a standalone workout, or do a heavy deadlift as a standalone workout, and that is when she hit that 200 deadlift. But like I said, that's not really the situation, or the circumstance that you'll be deadlifting heavy in competition. In competition, um, you'll be deadlifting under fatigue essentially, um, and having lifted, having squatted and benched as well. So we basically, the 200 in the gym was a false positive. We knew it was a false positive, mainly because, like I said, it's not going to be under like a fatigue circumstance. But in saying that, we also needed that false positive because we needed kind of that confidence that something in training is going well. 197 after the 192 was always going to be tough, and as you can see, she missed that there. Like basically the selection is why 197 and a half, why jump after missing the second, right? So at this stage you're competing, right? And Miriam basically hit 197, and having the lower body weight, we're trying to win the medal now, at 197. So we could have opted for a retake of 192. It just won't move the needle. It just won't be an action that is a step forwards towards our goal. Now, the process is the process, right? Like you compete as though this will earn you the medal, and you kind of just live with the results. This is the number from a competitive standpoint that Kavi had to take. Um, so yeah, pretty tough outcome there in the end. Um, that being said, with regards to Kavi, she has lifted for a little while now. She'll continue to lift and move forward. What competitions look like for her in the future is probably like, ideally, be able to train in better conditions, one. But two, competition after this is nationals, which is a quick turnaround after having finished worlds for us. Our nationals is mid-September. So after Worlds, maybe a little bit of time off, and then for her, it's just going to be like a 10-week block. So we have 10 weeks to kind of get right. Not a lot of time for someone who lives at this level one, but also someone who still has to address a little bit of health issues. But like I said, like it's we're not in the business of uh, putting out there built-in excuses. As an athlete, that's not something that you want to do. You want to understand your circumstance, accept it to a certain degree, and then kind of recalibrate what success looks like for her. So moving forward for Kavi, it's going to be nationals at mid-September, at the 57 kilo weight class. I'm not sure exactly who's competing. I just heard that Evie won't be competing at this year's nationals because I don't really know. I'm guessing she's doing a lot of work for the nationals itself, one, which she always does. But there'll also be Dana, who competed at this Worlds as well, that did manage to out total Kavi at this Worlds. So we are going to have to contend against her. I'm not sure if Catherine's another 57 kilo lifter that will be competing at, I'm not sure if she's going to compete at nationals. But yeah, basically back to back, head to heads with Kavi, and I know everyone's dealing with everything, and everyone's. I think Dana's pretty much going to be in the same situation. Quick turnaround. But that's that's going to be another tough obstacle for Kavi to overcome. So the the rise of powerlifting here in New Zealand, more specifically in the women's division, makes it really, really tough to get a bid for world spot now. It's funny because we're like a very, very small country, but we're running into similar problems of larger nations. We got some really, really good lifters that we want to put forward at worlds, especially in the women's side, but they're really, really having to compete here locally to even get a spot at the world's team. Again, like a problem that's quite understandable with the larger nations, but we're having to deal with now. So, speaking of larger nations, we're going to move on to Joy Nnamani's competition. So, four-time, two-division world champion Joy Nnamani up next. from Great Britain. She'll be competing at the under 63 kilo open weight class division. Geez, weight class and division. Under 63 kilo division. Um, for her, to just paint a little bit of a picture, um, there's going to be a four-way battle. Well, we anticipated a four-way battle for the two podium spots in the 63 kilo weight class. The only reason why I say two podium spots is, um, realistically speaking, Megan Scanlon is just like way far ahead of everyone, and she should run away with it, and she did for this competition. And there's four main competitors vying for the two podium spots, other podium spots. And apart from Joy, the other three is Chiara Bernardi from Italy, Sara Naldi from Italy, and I think Alba Strom. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name right. From Sweden. Um, so they're competing now. Again, Joy and I know this. If all four lifters do the best that they can, and all four lifters lift well, Joy doesn't make the podium. But you still want to make sure you play the game as though you understand the pathway to what success looks like, right? So the pathway to success for us is for Joy to overachieve, and for two lifters, maybe even just one potentially, to underachieve. But we probably need two lifters to underachieve. Um, so we're gonna play the game that way. We're not gonna be sure how the other girls will be, how well the other girls will lift, but that does mean that Joy has to overachieve, which suggests that we have to take some risks. Now, historically speaking, Joy being a bigger deadlifter, people would just think, oh, we'll just load whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and then she put all the risk in the deadlift basket, so to speak. But that's, if everything goes according to plan for all the other ladies, that's not really going to be a viable solution for us. Basically, if everything goes well for the other ladies, she's going to have to deadlift like 250 or 260 or something crazy, um, which isn't realistic. So we're going to have to take some risks on the squats. Okay. Um, and ended up having like a pretty spirited conversation with Sabrina, who's going to be her handler, and also gave my thoughts to Paul, the head coach, in terms of attempt selection for Joy, specifically in the squats. Basically, we need to play offense. If Joy doesn't squat more than 180, she loses anyways, right? So think about that, like in the numbers of the other girls. If she doesn't squat more than 180, she loses anyways. And there is a scenario, because Joy has been called upon it on the past, where she misses a second attempt or even an opener on a technicality on the squat, and it moves well. Okay, so I had to have a spirited conversation with Sabrina about making sure that if in that scenario Joy misses out of the technicality, and we have to go up, we have to attempt more than 182 and a half. And to her credit, she did say that yeah, if it moves, that we have to. But it is kind of like a hard risk or a hard gamble for handlers to make, um, to trust the lifters that just missed, to then go up another 7-10 kilos and then make that. So it is a big ask for me to ask the handlers to take that risk. But it's just like it's just the way it is. Like there's at this stage, if you can't trust your 4-time 2 division world champion Joy Nnamani, who can you trust, right? So let's head into the video now. So for Joy, again, like I said, for the squats, she has been called on depth on the past. She has been called on elbows touching the leg on as a technicality on the past. That does happen. It depends on how you interpret the rule of arm touching the leg and supporting yourself. But it's mainly because of her build. Like she does have very, very unique build, that it does happen sometimes. So we do decide to open light and then jump big. That's something that Joy does at the gym in training. Um, and she's very, very comfortable doing that. So 165 moved really, really well for her. Normally, and you hear the commentator say this quite a bit, she kind of slows down quite a bit, grinds the lifts a little bit, but she's able to lift it. The way I see Joy is basically she stands up with anything. She just has to make sure that everything's sharp and tidy. Um, and that's an obstacle like that. I think in my time, kind of coaching her, she's only missed one squat, I want to say, in terms of in competition, and that's the third attempt squat in Sheffield. Um, and the other misses that she's had was pretty much just technicalities. Okay, so we go 165, nice and sharp, bang, we're in the comp. All right, so lock that in. Now we have to take risks. Okay, and ironically, the conversation that I was having with Sabrina pretty much happened. She does miss this 175 off a technicality, and it's depth. Now, if you watch this video over, what you'll see is she does get two white lights initially and one red light from the front. Bruh, from the front. Um, and basically from there, the jury looks at the video, um, and this is the same replay that the jury would have, and then they think that that's not a good lift. That's a unanimous decision, by the way. Look, like that's their decision. I obviously don't agree, but I'm biased, so they call it back. Then the handlers then have to make a decision. Look, it moved. Do we still go up, or do we retake 175? Now remember, my estimation is that if she doesn't squat more than 180, she's gonna lose anyways. So, or she's off the podium. Not lose, but you know what I mean. Like, not being on the podium is losing in this scenario. So then Sabrina's put in this position, or Paul, or I think that was Ben Cook as well. Was put in this position where they have to take this risk. You can see there, 165, 175 miss, 182.5. This is pretty much make or break. You can see the GB team there looking nervously, because that's how we were all looking at this. We know it's a big risk, and basically trusting Joy to execute this. You see Ben Cook there losing his mind, because he knew that was a gamble, and he knew that paid off. One red, two whites, good enough there. Kind of holding your breath that the replay looks good from the jury, and you can see that there the arm touches the leg, but it's not necessarily like assisting support up. That rule, by the way, originated from equipped lifting, when they would like pull their elbows down and then kind of push against their legs. But that's neither here nor there. That's why that rule is there, for those of you who are wondering. So gamble pays off, holding my breath. I was in the front seat looking at the jury go, and I see them, if they're nodding or if they're okay, they keep it. We're in the competition with a 182 squat. That being said, that was the gamble, that was the risk. But the other three girls also squatted well. So again, we needed to overachieve, and we needed another two girls to underachieve. But the other three girls literally squatted well too. So in this scenario, the underachieving part of the equation from the other three girls was not happening quite yet. Basically took that gamble for no reason. Well, no real reason yet, but a theoretical reason, right? Because we didn't know what they were going to squat for the thirds anyways, because Joy lifts before them. And then they make their squats. Joy makes her squat. So again, that scenario of everyone doing about as well as they could. So in that scenario, Joy is not on the podium, so that's still playing out. For the bench, basically, this is not the place to risk. This is not the place to gamble for her, because it's not her best lift out of the other three. So here we're going to play conservative, and we're gonna have a look at how the other ladies respond to the bench rule. Now, there was some controversy earlier in the competition about the bench rule application on the 47 kilo class. Now, the 63 kilo class, in my opinion, had well, pretty much the top contenders were how do you say, vulnerable with the bench rule, depending on how the referees call it. But in the past, they've been called on it too, like the competitors for this class have been called upon it too, and I feel like that gave them enough time to make adjustments to their bench technique to get it right, and it showed in this competition. Basically, those other competitors, Alba, Chiara, Sarah, I think Sarah's bench depth is fine. Scanlon as well was okay. Um, Basically, they were able to make their benches with no complications to the bench rule. Now, trust me, I'm not the biggest fan of the bench rule. That's an understatement. I don't think it should exist, but that is a factor that we do have to consider in competition, especially in this particular one with those particular competitors. Um, I was there, front row seat. I thought the other ladies' bench was all good as well in terms of bench depth. Um, so she makes 97 and a half. And then now she's gonna try to attempt 100. So uh, she's benched 102.5 in the past as a 57 kilo. So 100 is a conservative number, but she was dealing with a little bit of bicep pain for a little while now. Hasn't quite come right. It's actually felt the best on this particular day. So we're quite grateful for that, and was able to even attempt 100. Just didn't go her way on this day. Um, so no go on this 100 kilo attempt, which is unfortunate. Again, now after the bench, it's a scenario where Joy missed the bench, 2.5 kilos, not a big deal. Really not a big deal at this level. But the other girls are pretty much doing having the best days of their life on the platform. So um, that scenario played out where everyone's doing about as well as they could. Um, in this scenario, we have to pivot our goal. So, knowing that the podium was probably out of sight, barring any kind of crazy double miss on two lifters deadlifts, uh, basically we have to pivot to the deadlift world record and a deadlift gold medal, of course. Um, so what we wanted to do was take the deadlift world record on the second attempt. What that gives us an opportunity to do is, well, that what that means for us is basically a 215 opener, jump to 231.5 on her second. This is the concept of basically not flying too close to the sun. Anything more than 215 would have just cooked her or taxed her a little bit more, which is unnecessary. 215. Just take it as a last warm up, and then take your 231.5 attempt on the world record. That's the plan, and that's what she executes. 215 moves like what 215 is supposed to move like. Um, so yeah, the reason why you want to take the 231.5 for your second attempt, because in the scenario that two lifters start missing, the second and third attempt deadlift, your at least your second attempt is paced to potentially make a run at whoever misses, right? But that scenario didn't play out. But you still have to consider the misses from the other ladies, like so. When you select your attempt for your second, you don't actually see their other lifters' second attempt results yet. So you do have to make that decision before you know the result of the second attempt of the other ladies. Now, everyone makes their second, I think. Um, so 231.5 was pretty much the primary goal for this competition now. 231.5 would be Joy's third weight class deadlift world record. There's a better way of saying that. third world record, or a, her world record in her third weight class. There you go. A world record in her third weight class, and this is obviously for the deadlift. She did stand up with 240 last year, which she was robbed of, um, and she makes 231 here. And this from here, like I said, the other girls just make. And in this scenario, the other girls are just playing defense in truth, right? Like if you're ahead, you have to play defense. You got to know when to play defense and when to play offense. Obviously, Joy is in a position where she has to play offense because she's behind, and objectively speaking, right? So you do have to chase, otherwise you're just gonna go conservative and lose, right? So she has to attack while the other three lifters have to defend, or the top two lifters have to defend, and that's how this played out. I think the top uh, three lifters was obviously Megan, and the other two was the Italian team, and they were both, yes, chasing each other, but also trying to defend from here on out. Probably not Joy, but trying to defend from Alba as well. So those defensive play calling really did just put us in a position where we couldn't do much more than recalibrate or reorient our goals to just the deadlift world record. Geez, I just said just the deadlift world record. Um, so yeah, for the 235 was somewhat of a meaningless attempt. We're just gonna attempt it anyways because for the total. She's not gonna make this. Obviously, people seen this play out before in the past. She's not gonna make this. Um, so what's next? What's next for Joy? What's next for Joy is also a nationals. GB nationals is a little bit further down the line than our New Zealand nationals, so they have a little bit of space. It's November. Historically speaking, New Zealand nationals is placed because we tend to have an Oceania or a Commonwealth champs at the end of the year. Um, so our nationals is spaced out for that as the primary international comp that our lifters locally try to aspire for or work towards. But GB nationals obviously seems to be placed with consideration to most of their lifters aspiring to lift their best at worlds, and that's what it looks like here. So yeah, that's our next one for Joy. And yeah, someone who's obviously like a veteran of the sport, and still enjoys lifting at the highest level. That's pretty much what Joy lives for. The literally like the joy of the sport. That's because she competes fiercely, doesn't post. Unlike some people that are like they lift for the post. That's neither here nor there. So truly an honor to be coaching Joy, obviously at this level. Do you want to train like some of our world champion and world class powerlifters? Well, check out our NZPA training app, where you can get access to over 115 programs and training blocks with over 2,000 unique workouts. Our more convenient and affordable solution for those who are looking to add a bit of structure to their strength training at home or at the comfort of their own gym. Head over to nzpa.programs.app or simply click in the link in the description below. Come join the squad and train with us. All right, next up we have Karlina Tongotea from New Zealand. At the time of this competition, the defending world champion, looking to defend her title against the Sheffield champion Agata Sitko. Big matchup for Karlina. Obviously, there's also World Games ramifications for the podium spots. But for us, what success looked like for Carl is obviously a successful title defense. By the time this video comes out, the results are out. So basically, you all know that we were not able to successfully defend her title, and it was, in truth, pretty painful experience at the time. Obviously, you try to do your best, and as her coach, I couldn't help but feel solely responsible for the underperformance. Obviously, I don't want to take any accountability out of the hands of the lifter, but as a coach, I felt accountable for honestly not getting her uh, strong enough on the day, or even at her strongest on the day um, of the competition. About 3 or so weeks out, we were feeling pretty good with our training, but the last 2 to 3 weeks was really, really tough on both the top sets, on the volume sets. Everything was tough, specifically on the squats, and you can kind of see that play out. And again, like, Karlina's an athlete that pretty much just listens and executes what's being told of her. So, which is why I felt like I really let her down. Um, uh, in terms of um, the work that we did to build up for this competition, especially after, like, in my opinion, also like a very successful campaign for off Sheffield in February. Obviously February to June build up is not necessarily the best build up for a lot of lifters, but obviously a lot of the lifters that went to Sheffield um, did pretty well too at this world. So including Agatha Sitko. Um, so that's no excuse that we want to use now, um, especially now as well. Okay, so we'll head. Basically, what makes this the most painful is we didn't feel like um, it felt like we lost. What I mean by that is, if it wasn't that Agatha beat us at her best. She was obviously at her best, um, but we were not at our best, and that's what's the most painful part about this competition. It felt like we lost it more than Agatha won it, and that's not to take away from Agatha. Um, it's just that, in my opinion, and um, the way we saw training and kind of projecting what would happen on the day, I did see both Agatha and Karlina hitting in the 620s, maybe even the mid 620s. Just how well Agatha's training looked like she was going, and how well our training will look like it was going about 3 weeks out. You know, but the squats, we were only able to um, get out of the squats with our opener at 217. Um, with 217, there was just literally no scenario where we're gonna total 620. Almost no scenario where we beat Agatha. Um, and that's the truth, that like, with respect to Agatha, it's just one of those things that, like, we just didn't see her hitting 600, or maybe even like 610. We knew that it was gonna take more than that because she was going up a weight class. So the attempt selection was 217 for the opener, and then 225 to pace for a chip on the third attempt. Um, this is what 225 looked like. It looked okay on the walkout. Um, Basically, double stick point. Normally, she'll get one stick point and then she'll be able to get over it. But she mentioned in a podcast before already that she felt like she was about to pass out on that because of how long that grind was. You can see that here, stick point one, and get through that, stick point through, and then Dunzo. Um, After that attempt, man, like, another third attempt, or a third attempt on the 225, um, is a really, really low percentage chance of making that lift. However, if you don't take that, yes, you save a little bit more energy, but you still walk away with 217. You just, like, went from a low percentage chance of making the third attempt to a 0% chance if you just skip it outright, right? Yes, you save, like I said, like, a little bit of energy, um, but then you still go away with 217, which is why we did have to retake 225. 225 was taken as a second because basically if we make 225, and Agatha does help us a little bit by not performing to her best, 225 I felt like would be enough with to still win. Um, Karlina misses it anyways. Agatha actually opts to go up a conservative amount on her third. I think she jumped 2.5, if I remember correctly, and she misses too. So basically, Agatha I think squatted like a lot more in training than what she missed here, but so did we. So but for us, we were hoping to make up a good chunk of our total on the squat. So um, this was obviously a lot more consequential for us. Um, the next one here that I want to talk about is the bench. So I'll talk a bit about it in advance. Agatha obviously has had trouble in the bench in the past, um, but it looks like she's made um, the adjustments necessary to get it passed from a bench dip standpoint, but also like a little bit of cheeky, butt lift here and there and beating the press command here and there, but it looks like she's sharpened up a lot on the bench. So, and also with the going up a weight class, we did anticipate her to hit a big bench. But also, Karlina last year was grinding out 122.5 on her third attempt bench at Worlds, and that was she was able to earn a silver medal on that on Worlds. So, and right now we opening at 125. So Karlina's made some serious gains on the bench to herself. Um, Opening at your last year's Worlds PB on bench is no easy feat, but she was able to make some serious improvement there. Um, the thing about her bench is basically from last year's Worlds to this year's Worlds, we made some really good technical adjustments that paid off really well for her. Obviously, that we were able to showcase that at Sheffield. She was able to bench 127.5 at Sheffield, open at 125 here. But one of the changes is the way she set up and the way she grips her bench. The way she sets up is she sets up and grabs the bar outside of the rings, which is illegal. But keep in mind that this was still during her setup. She's not finished her setup yet. And then you can see the head ref pretty much tripping and trying to get her to move her hand in. This is someone that's like, this is at Worlds where someone's like trying to pretty much lift optimally, and then you get the head ref trying to move your hand, um, during your setup. It's not ideal, but it's an opener weight. Basically, the confusion was, like I said, like she was still setting up, and her hands were outside the ring while she was still setting up. Um, Obviously, hasn't even unracked the bar yet, so it shouldn't even count. It's like if someone sets up with their hands under it, like, you shouldn't necessarily adjust the person's hand. Um, Jason actually and I went around a long way, but Jason managed to reach the jury first and talk to the jury about that situation. Jury agreed, yeah, that the head ref shouldn't be doing that, and allow the lifter to finish her setup and then make a decision if she's in a legal position or not. Obviously, you can see that their hands are well within the rings, and she was able to get a start command. Now, the second attempt from 125 was 130, which would be a PB for her. 127.5, like I said, was her old comp PB. This is a new PB here at 130. The pace we wanted to go here is a 132.5 or a 135 top end. 135 if everything was magical on the day. Obviously, it was not magical on the day. We knew what squat looked like. So probably 132.5 was the number. Now, knowing that 127.5 was her comp PB, why 132.5? Basically, she's been benching 130 consistently in the gym, and she actually hit a 132. Sorry, yeah, 132 at the gym, with not the best pause. So 132.5 was probably the third attempt that we wanted to take here. Yeah, so basically in the gym, she hit 132. not the best pose, but move reasonably well. So I thought, yeah, 132.5, even under the circumstance after the squats, um, should be okay. Now, the way she actually executes this is she beats the press commands. She knew that she beat the press command. Everyone knows. Everyone that beats the press command knows that they beat the press command, and that split second of a thought is normally enough to kind of put you off, right? And even if it doesn't put you off and you press the damn thing, you'll probably get a red light anyways because you beat the press command. So she knew that, enough of a distraction, I suppose, to miss the lift. If not, would have been a red light anyways, in my opinion. At least one from the front. Um, Fun fact: if you beat the press command, and the jury is not paying attention at that moment, even though you do beat the press command, the jury won't have sound on their replay. I don't think, because I've never sat at the world's jury, but I don't think they have sound on the replay, so I don't think they'll hear the press command. Even if you do, sometimes the live stream has a bit of a lag on the audio, anyways. So you can see that there, touch and go, straight up touch and go. Um, so yeah, maybe you can get away with beating the press command. Now, um, heading into the deadlifts, basically Agata's way out of reach. It was just not possible for us to catch her. At this stage, we pretty much lost the world title, and you're gonna have to accept it. And you're gonna have to stop looking forward and start looking back to see how much defense you have to play, in the case that someone is chasing you. Cranen or Cranen, depends on who's saying it. I don't really know. I literally hear like 50-50 way of pronouncing it. Cranen and Jess are trying to battle for the last podium spot at this competition, and trying to battle for that last World Games spot. Now, you have a scenario where then you have Karlina, who, yes, it's terrible that we lost the world title, but you know what would be worse? If we slid from second to third. So we had to play defense, knowing when to play offense and when to play defense. We had to play defense to tell basically the other two ladies, hey, you can try aim for this shinier medal, or you guys go defend and try to aim for the more important podium spot and world game spot. um, and we'll play defense too. So if we play defensive enough, knowing and playing the man, basically the shot callers there, Garrett Bentley from Canada, and then also obviously Matt Garrett from the US, knowing that they're gonna try to play things a little bit more conservatively to try to defend from, or like trying to compete against each other for that final podium spot. We have to show, from our end, that we're willing to play defense as well, saying like, hey, don't get silly and don't try to chase us. I mean, you probably could, looking at how these deadlifts are looking, you probably could try to chase us, but we're going to play defense. And if we play defense, you probably won't be able to chase us anyways, and you're just risking your own podium spot. And this is talking to both, obviously, Team Canada and Team USA. That's what we do. We kind of prove that we're not too proud to play defense, and that's what we did here. And basically, Karlina has to settle for second, has to settle for defending second, and Kranen ends up earning the podium spot, as she just tries to also then defend her podium spot from Jess. Um, the fun thing about Worlds is that you get guaranteed rematch if you're good enough to make the team again next year. And in this situation, World Games as well. So rematch is coming up. So that's, again, like I said, like the fun thing about Worlds is, yes, we lose this one, but we have guaranteed rematch. You don't need a rematch clause or whatever in powerlifting. You just need to qualify for your team for the next Worlds. And that's what we get. We get next Worlds potentially, but definitely World Games. So another head-to-head battle between Cranen. I'd imagine she'd improve by then too. Karlina and Agata. And before she puts me on blast, congratulations to Sami DePass, who won an IPF best overall, I believe, and earned her regional spot, who came fourth in this competition. So Jess actually didn't come fourth. Semi DePass from Jamaica came fourth in this competition. Wasn't enough to earn herself a World Games spot, but the NAPF win was. And so congratulations to Sammy. Don't put me on blast. I do see you. Um, I do see Jamaica, and I do see the progress that you're making. So we will see you in Chengdu, China. If not, at the very least, we'll see you at Worlds next year. I'm sure competing fiercely again. So you'll get head to head to head, head to head to head to head. Anyways, you get a four-way matchup at World Games in the 76 kilo class. So looking forward to that. Again, yes, we do lose this one. It's painful. We accept it. I accept a lot of the pain and accountability. It's hard not to as a coach for this loss. But rematch, rematch, rematch. Okay, here we are. Last one of the team. We have Tasi from New Zealand in the super heavyweight class. She was a podium finisher last year when we stole the bronze medal in the super heavyweight class last year. And no, we aren't ashamed to say that we did steal it because we set out to steal it. We knew that last year the other ladies were significantly stronger than her, and we were gonna need someone to underperform for Jewel to then sneak in and steal it last moment. And that's what we aimed for, and that's what we got last year. And that's also what we're aiming for this year, because fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, Jewel is probably right now in the most competitive women's class in powerlifting. We literally have three of the best super heavyweight women vying for the top three spots at Worlds. Okay, so we have Alexis Jones, Sunita Mulu, and Brittany Schlater. And obviously, you have Jewel Tasi, a podium finisher from last year's World, who's just like on the outside looking in. But in this situation, basically last year, people saw that if you're not careful with your attempt selection, or if you're not playing defense at the right time and just constantly playing offense or whatever at the wrong time, you could get snuck up on, and that's what happened last year. So this year, maybe, I don't know, maybe played into the heads of some people and kind of played defense when appropriate, because Jewel was in this year was also ready to steal another one. But let's get into the lifting. So first up, we have squats. The primary goal for this competition was basically to get a silver medal on the squat. Sunita Molu is probably gonna be too far ahead from us, barring any kind of mishaps on her end. So our goal was to out squat Brittany, and maybe have to out squat Alexis Jones, but Alexis Jones is a little bit further back from us in the squats anyways. So we open at 255 and then go to 272 and a half on our second. The scenario is basically Brittany will probably be our primary competitor for that squat silver medal. Knowing that Brittany has squatted 285 or in the mid 280s, that's kind of like her range in the past, but also knowing that Brittany is competing probably against Alexis Jones for second place. If not, Alexis Jones, I know, is trying to vie for the gold medal as well. Um, uh, Basically knowing that Brittany's probably gonna be playing defense a little bit on the squats, and kind of just waiting to see what Sunita will pull out on the squat. And this is again, like, I'm not saying that this is exactly how they thought. This is my assumption, or my reflection on how the attempts were being called. So we go 272 for Jewel on her second attempt. after this, basically, I believe I believe we're in silver medal position as well from here, because I believe, if I recall correctly, um, maybe Brittany's like going 272 as well, but she had the higher lot number, so she attempts after us. But here, then we don't get to see what Brittany gets to attempt. We have to select a number before Brittany attempts it and before she puts her attempt down, her next attempt down. So then we got to think, okay, like kind of predict what Brittany might attempt for her third squat. Um, Looking at her pace, uh, she could either go 282.5 and then take the silver medal squat from us, or she goes 280. The more likely scenario is that she goes 280, considering that she's in a tight battle, right? Like, and kind of knowing historically how the Canadian coaching team calls their numbers. I know they're in the more conservative end, if you want to describe them like that. Um, Basically, we knew that if we select 280, there's a good chance that Brittany selects 280 as well. And that's kind of what happens. We both go for 280. Jewel does hit first, um, and they do both make. Now, it is also important to know that this is a must make for Jewel, because Alexis Jones, I think, hit 275 on her third. So she did make that, and then that moves Alexis Jones to silver medal position on the squat. This squat moves Jewel to the silver medal position on the squat, bumps Alexis Jones to third, because Brittany still holds position on her. But when Brittany makes her third squat, Jewel pretty much gets the silver medal on body weight on Brittany. So Sunita's just like way ahead now, after the third squats. So knowing that, also, we're looking at the field. We're looking at how things are playing out. Sunita squats huge on her third, and she looks like, barring any kind of disaster, she looks like she's gonna win the competition. And Brittany and Alexis will have to settle for second and third in either direction. Um, that was a little bit of the worst case scenario for us, because basically, not all three is trying to vie for the top spot. Only one is, and then two is kind of, and again, like, I don't know what's going on in the mindset of the coaches here just quite yet, but only two is going for it. So one's playing defense, one playing offense, but we really wanted all three to play offense so that we can, you know, rely on some mistakes potentially. And this is just the truth, right? Like, Jewel does need the other two, or at least one, to make mistakes. Um, None of that happened. But one thing that was well within our control, like I said, like apart from the squat medal. So primary objective achieved: squat medal, squat shiny medal, silver. One of the things that we really, really wanted to get out of this competition is put forward a good bench. So last year's Worlds, Jewel's top bench number was 127.5. This year, we open at 130. That's just a testament to the progress that she's made. In the gym, the best that she hit was 140. But the 140 obviously was in the gym, and again was a standalone workout. If you are a big squatter, not like a big squatter, I think I'm a big squatter, whatever, like a proper big squatter, like a silver medalist at World Squatter, you know that squatting heavy right after, or benching heavy right after squatting heavy can tax your elbows or your biceps or your shoulders a little bit. And this is something that, even though Jewel bench 140 in the gym, we have to consider. And you can see that on the lifts here. You can see that one side is dumping pretty significantly on her lifts here. Yeah, you can see that there. It's not insignificant. It's very, very visible. So even though she hits 140, we open at 130, pace 135 for her second, and then from here, then make a decision. Do we go for the 140? Or do we go for a 137.5 and get another 2.5 kilo on her total? At this stage, The other ladies were still lifting quite exceptionally. Both Alexis Jones, Brittany, and Sonita. There's pretty much nothing to steal quite yet. Opportunity hasn't presented itself quite yet, if at all. So we're just gonna try to play a little bit more conservative here and hit 137.5 for her third. Um, so again, 137.5 is nothing to scoff at. It sounds conservative, but on paper, basically last year's Worlds or just her PB bench is 127.5 in competition. So you can see that they're just right. Maybe 2.5 kilos more if we really wanted to push it. But big 10 kilo PB at Worlds on bench there after a huge squat. So not a bad outcome for us on the bench at all. So after the bench, the other big thing that worked really well for Jewel for this training block was her deadlifts. It was just moving exceptionally well. Heading into Worlds. She hit 250 at last year's national, so 250.5 for a national record at last year's national. So that's coming along quite nicely. But we were willing to load up to 262, maybe 265 here. Basically, if the opportunity presents itself, opportunity doesn't present itself. So we were just going for a big total, really. Last year's Worlds, the podium winning deadlift was 242.5. Basically, this year's Worlds, 237.5 was our opener. So you can tell, like, third attempt last year was 242.5, 237.5 opener. There's definitely going to be progress for her to be made here on deadlift. So the main theme for Jewel here for this Worlds, if you haven't caught on, is basically super duper accurate execution and a ton of actual physical progress as well. So if you put that together, that adds up to a big PB total. So 247.5, that's a 5 kilos from last year's Worlds, and moves like that. So you can tell why we were pretty confident heading into deadlifts. But by this time, we pretty much don't have any major aspirations anymore. The top three lifters were just too far ahead to do any kind of silly chasing. So now we're going to have to defend fourth place. I think fifth place was a little bit too far, anyways, to have to defend fourth place. But we definitely didn't want to make any kind of silly decisions that will make us vulnerable. Definitely last year was an edge out win on the podium. Okay, this year a much more comfortable cushion between her fourth place and fifth place. From the two Australians, I think is the two people that we were trying to compete against, Natalie Lalai and Lucy. So shout out to them too. So here we go. We got 255 for Jules' final deadlift attempt at Worlds, trying to finish off a 9 for 9 performance and finish off of the World Championships for the team with a 9 for 9 performance. A big PB. Uh, I think it's 672.5. So her old total PB was 647.5. Yeah, do the math there. Yeah, basically huge PB for her. Obviously national record, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's just a great way to finish the competition for Jewel. Again, Jules had a taste of the podium. Big PB is great for a lot of people, but her aspirations are much greater. It just so happens to be that her obstacle is the greatest that is ever been for anyone in that weight class. You literally have three of the best super heavyweights of all time that Jewel has to compete against. Um, so the main goal for her is to keep establishing herself as a legitimate contender. Now you can say, hey, she finished top 4 in the world. She is a legitimate contender. Yes, we do get that. We understand that. But um, there's a lot of things in her game that we do know that we have to improve upon. You know, you see someone that's in the silver medal position in the squat, right? But the bench and the deadlift was way behind last year. And you can see the progress from last year to this year. A lot of the progress that we've put into her training, a lot of the effort that we put into her training and her execution and the competition is through the bench and the deadlift, and you could see that bring her total up. And again, like trying to work towards being a really complete lifter and a complete competitor. um, right now, like I said, we can keep up with the squats of the best of the best with the best of the best. Okay, but right now we're a little bit behind on the bench, a little bit behind on the deadlift, objectively speaking. um, and we have some work to do, and we know we have some work to do, because, like I said, this is probably, and no one in the powerlifting community can probably argue, this is the healthiest the super heavyweight women's class has looked in a long time, and that's an understatement. Um, not the healthiest necessarily, but more so the strongest that it's been in a long time. Um, and yeah, that's a really steep mountain to climb for Jewel. But we're ready to climb it. We're ready to make that journey. You can see that here from last year, uh, stealing a podium spot last year. Again, not ashamed to say that. That's literally what we set out to do. This year, trying to do that again. No one let us steal their podium spot this year, but definitely next year we're looking at earning a podium spot instead of stealing one. And again, we're just going to keep chipping away at it, keep working towards a more well-rounded lifter and a more complete athlete, um, and really try to establish ourselves to tango with the best of the best in history in the super heavyweight females class. So there you have it, our wrap up for this year's IPF Worlds. Definitely a mixed bag of results, which is fine. This is sport. That's what happens. What's next for the four ladies for the team? I already mentioned Kavi will have a pretty big matchup at this year's nationals for us. A quick turnaround for us. Um, I only, I really do just mainly say this is a big matchup because we do respect the other competitors that we're going to be up against for Kavi, um, and we do understand the magnitude of the matchup coming up. But in truth, another probably not ideal build up for Kavi, but obviously Dana's gonna be coming from the same kind of um, timing as us with regards to having just competed at Worlds. But also, Catherine potentially, I'm not sure if she's going to be competing at this stage, but Catherine potentially also another one in the mix there to contend against. For Joy, it's going to be Nationals for GB, which is again much later on in the year than us. So that'll be fun for Joy again. Um, for Karlina, also nationals. So New Zealand has a thing where we do have to compete at nationals, but for the world's athletes, it's pretty tough because like worlds is like mid June, and then our nationals is like mid September. If you take a little bit of break after nationals, like you don't really have much time to build up for. After worlds, you don't really have much time to build for nationals. Obviously, a lot of the lifters will be trying to peak, proper peak for worlds. That's where they want to do their best, if not Sheffield, um, which sometimes means that there's a little bit of a reset in training. And that's kind of where Carl is right now, a little bit of reset in training. Um, but what we do get to do is compete different weight class potentially at national. So we're going to be competing at the 84 kilo weight class for Karlina at nationals. And damn, did I use Carl and Karlina interchangeably? So I call her Carl. Don't call her Carl. So yeah, for Karlina, we're going to be competing in the 84 class for nationals. And then also Jewel will be competing at nationals as well. in the 84 plus class. Jules probably going to have the toughest turnaround. Obviously, lifting the most amount of weight, it's probably going to be um, the toughest to turn around in terms of timing. For her, she also does. We do have a pretty good competitor here for the super heavyweight class, and that's Marilyn. Shout out to Marilyn. I we do see you as well. You know, we do want to make this competition happen between the two, obviously. And again, no excuses for us from our end, you know, having turned around. Geez, what am I saying? No excuse and then start giving excuses. Having turned around short amount of time from Worlds, but we will try our best to put our best foot forward. Um, yeah, definitely not going to underestimate Maryland. It's just not something. I don't know if it's like a theme that's come up already. Definitely something that we don't do. We don't really try to underestimate our opponents. If not, we always try to overestimate them, expecting their best. So yeah, really big matchups for us at nationals for both Kavi and Jewel. Joy. Again, nationals don't quite sure. We're not quite sure what that looks like quite yet for her because it's a little bit further down. And for Carl, a, a pretty chill nationals as well. Like so similar plan to last year. Kind of chill out, kind of try to get back to baseline maybe by nationals, and then from nationals move on from whatever opportunities presents itself. So yeah, that's what's up next for these particular four ladies moving forward. And thank you for once again tuning in. Hopefully you enjoy the video. This is going to be a pretty long one because we're putting all the lifters together. But hopefully you enjoy the video and stay tuned. We will be continuing to put out more content. We're back to putting out more content on YouTube once again. And we're back.